guys, welcome to Real Talk Cinema, your go-to spot for honest, deep dives into the latest movies, reviews, behind-the-scenes secrets, and all the cool facts you won't find anywhere else. If you love movies that make you think and keep you on the edge of your seat, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on our fresh content. Now, let's jump right into today's movie breakdown. The film begins in the year 1977 in Recife, a bustling coastal city in northeastern Brazil, known for its rich culture and vibrant traditions. At the heart of this opening scene is the famous carnival, a time of year when the streets burst alive with music, dance, flamboyant costumes, and a contagious energy that brings communities together in celebration. Carnival in Recife is a massive event filled with joyous crowds, rhythmic drumming, and colorful parades that reflect the city's unique Afro-Brazilian heritage. However, this outward display of festivity sharply contrasts with the darker reality lurking beneath the surface. Brazil at this time was governed by a military dictatorship, which had seized power in 1964 and maintained a strict authoritarian regime. The government exercised rigid control over the media, censored dissenting voices, and maintained a widespread network of surveillance to suppress political opposition. Fear and mistrust permeated everyday life, with citizens wary of being reported or targeted by secret police. This tension creates a haunting juxtaposition in the film's opening. The carefree exuberance of carnival masks an undercurrent of anxiety and oppression. While people outwardly participate in the celebrations, many are inwardly burdened by the threat of political persecution. The city of Recife itself embodies this duality, a place where the rhythms of joy clash with the shadows of fear, setting the stage for the protagonist's journey through a world that is as beautiful as it is dangerous. Wagner Moura takes center stage as Marcelo, a complex and layered character whose return to his hometown sets the emotional core of the film. Moura, widely recognized for his riveting portrayal of Pablo Escobar in Narcos, delivers one of his most intense and nuanced performances to date in this role. Unlike his previous characters, Marcelo is not a figure of overt power or violence, but a deeply troubled technology expert carrying the weight of a painful past. Marcelo's expertise in cutting-edge espionage technology places him in a unique position within the shadowy world of political resistance and surveillance. His knowledge isn't just technical, it's symbolic of how modern tools can both empower and endanger those fighting authoritarian regimes. Moura's portrayal captures the internal conflict of a man torn between the desire for personal peace and the necessity of confronting the dangers that await him back home. Throughout the film, Moura navigates a spectrum of emotions: paranoia, regret, determination, and vulnerability, showing Marcelo's struggle to reconcile his past actions with the uncertain present. This role demands a subtle, introspective performance, requiring Moura to embody not just a skilled operative, but a deeply human character shaped by trauma, fear, and hope. It's a departure from his more overtly dramatic roles and marks a significant milestone in his acting career, demonstrating his remarkable range and dedication. Marcelo's character is defined by the heavy burdens of trauma and guilt, which profoundly shape his every action and decision throughout the film. This emotional weight is not just a backstory element, but a living, breathing force that colors his interactions and inner world. Having endured painful experiences, whether from loss, betrayal, or the brutal realities of living under a repressive regime, Marcelo carries scars that are both visible and hidden. Wagner Moura skillfully brings this internal struggle to life, offering viewers a raw and deeply human portrayal of a man wrestling with the ghosts of his past. Marcelo's trauma manifests as moments of vulnerability, flashbacks, and hesitation, underscoring how the past can trap even the strongest of individuals. At the same time, his guilt drives much of the narrative tension, whether it is guilt over the consequences of his actions, perceived failures, or the lives lost along the way. This emotional canvas allows Moura to explore the complex psychology of someone caught between duty and remorse, resilience and fragility. It's a character study that goes beyond the typical spy thriller archetype, revealing the emotional costs of resistance and survival. Marcelo's haunted soul becomes a lens through which the film examines themes of memory, justice, and redemption, making his journey not only a physical one, but a profound emotional odyssey. The film is helmed by acclaimed Brazilian filmmaker Kleber Mendonça Filho, best known internationally for his groundbreaking work on Bacurau, a genre-defying film that masterfully blends social critique with suspenseful storytelling. Mendonça Filho has built a reputation for crafting movies that do more than entertain. They challenge audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about society, politics, and history. His signature style involves weaving sharp social commentary into genre frameworks, such as thriller, sci-fi, creating stories that are both engaging and thought-provoking. In The Secret Agent, Mendonça Filho elevates this approach by teaming up directly with Wagner Moura, who not only stars in the film, but also co-wrote the script alongside the director. This collaboration brings a deeply personal and authentic voice to the story, as Moura's intimate understanding of his character and the political context informs the narrative's emotional depth and complexity. Their joint writing process allowed them to fuse historical reality with creative fiction, ensuring that the film resonates on multiple levels: political, psychological, and emotional. The director's vision shines through in the way the film balances gripping espionage thriller elements with a nuanced exploration of Brazil's painful past under the military dictatorship. Mendonça Filho's storytelling doesn't shy away from uncomfortable questions about resistance, identity, and the cost of freedom, making the film a powerful cinematic statement as well as a suspenseful drama. This partnership between director and lead actor-writer results in a film that is rich in detail, layered in meaning, and boldly original. To fully immerse viewers in the world of 1970s receive, the production team went to great lengths to recreate the era with meticulous attention to detail. Every element, from costumes to set designs, was carefully researched and crafted to authentically represent the vibrant yet politically charged atmosphere of Brazil during the late military dictatorship period. The wardrobe features period-accurate fabrics, colors, and styles that reflect both the exuberance of carnival and the everyday realities of life under surveillance and repression. The sets themselves transport the audience back to the narrow, bustling streets of Recife, filled with vintage cars, old storefronts, and public spaces bustling with locals dressed in 70s fashion. The production design balances the lively energy of the city's cultural celebrations with the gritty undercurrent of political tension, creating a tangible sense of place that feels lived in and historically accurate. Adding to the authenticity, the filmmakers employed vintage cameras and lenses reminiscent of those used during the 1970s. This choice was not merely stylistic, but a deliberate effort to replicate the grain, color saturation, and film texture characteristic of that era's cinematography. The result is a visual aesthetic that feels both nostalgic and immersive, giving audiences the sensation of stepping directly into the past. This textured look supports the film's themes by visually contrasting the era's joyous celebrations with the shadowy, often sinister forces lurking behind the scenes. Maria Fernanda Candido delivers a powerful performance as Elza, a character who embodies both resilience and the intricate moral challenges faced by ordinary people living under a repressive regime. Elza is not just a side character or mere love interest. She represents the strength and complexity of those who quietly resist oppression while navigating the dangers of everyday life during Brazil's military dictatorship. Her character is layered. She shows moments of courage and defiance, but also vulnerability and internal conflict. Elza must constantly weigh personal survival against the urge to fight back, reflecting the difficult choices faced by many women and families during this dark period of Brazilian history. Maria Fernanda's nuanced portrayal captures these tensions with subtlety, revealing a woman who is fiercely determined yet painfully aware of the risks involved. Through Elza, the film highlights the emotional toll of repression on individuals and communities. She becomes a symbol of hope and endurance, showing how resilience often comes not from grand gestures, but from quiet persistence, small acts of bravery, and moral complexity. Maria Fernanda Candido's performance adds profound emotional depth to the story, reminding viewers that behind political conflicts lie deeply human experiences of fear, love, sacrifice, and survival. The narrative of the secret agent draws heavily from the real life experiences of countless individuals who lived through and resisted the harsh military dictatorship that ruled Brazil from 1964 to 1985, a period marked by widespread human rights abuses, censorship, and brutal suppression of dissent. This era, often called Brazil's dark dictatorship, saw thousands of activists, students, journalists, and ordinary citizens risk their lives to oppose an authoritarian regime determined to silence opposition through fear and violence. The film's story is not a mere fictional thriller, but a tribute to these courageous resistance movements that operated in the shadows, often at great personal cost. It captures the climate of paranoia and danger that defined the time, where friends and family could suddenly disappear and trust was scarce. The characters' struggles reflect real dilemmas faced by those who fought for democracy, whether to engage in direct action, endure torture and imprisonment, or find more subtle ways to undermine the regime. By grounding the story in this historical context, the film honors the bravery and sacrifice of Brazil's political prisoners and activists. It also educates audiences unfamiliar with this chapter of history, highlighting how the fight for freedom often unfolds in hidden, complex, and deeply personal ways. This authenticity gives the movie a powerful emotional weight, reminding viewers that beneath the suspense and intrigue lie true stories of human courage against oppression. Marcelo's character, portrayed as a skilled expert in espionage technology, reflects a critical and often overlooked aspect of Cold War-era intelligence operations: the growing importance of technology in the shadowy battlefields of espionage. During the 1970s, intelligence agencies around the world increasingly relied on technological innovations to gather information, conduct surveillance, and outmaneuver opponents in a high-stakes game of secrecy and deception. In The Secret Agent, Marcelo's expertise serves as a window into this technological evolution. His skills are not just about traditional spycraft like disguise or covert meetings, but about mastering emerging tools, bugging devices, wiretaps, encrypted communications, and other early forms of digital espionage that dramatically changed how governments monitored enemies and protected secrets. This focus on tech highlights how espionage was becoming a high-tech arena, reflecting the real historical shift toward electronic surveillance during the Cold War. By centering Marcelo's abilities on technology, the film emphasizes the double-edged nature of these advancements. They could empower resistance movements by providing new ways to communicate and gather intelligence, but they also enabled regimes to tighten their grip through sophisticated monitoring and repression. Marcelo's role thus embodies this tension, illustrating how technology became both a weapon and a vulnerability in the struggle for freedom. This angle adds depth and modern relevance to the story, reminding viewers that even decades ago, the battle over information and privacy was fierce, and the stakes remain just as high today. Hey guys! Marcelo's character is defined by the heavy burdens of trauma and guilt, which profoundly shape his every action and decision throughout the film. This emotional weight is not just a backstory element, but a living, breathing force that colors his interactions and inner world. Having endured painful experiences, whether from loss, betrayal, or the brutal realities of living under a repressive regime, Marcelo carries scars that are both visible and hidden. Wagner Moura skillfully brings this internal struggle to life, offering viewers a raw and deeply human portrayal of a man wrestling with the ghosts of his past. Marcelo's trauma manifests as moments of vulnerability, flashbacks, and hesitation, underscoring how the past can trap even the strongest of individuals. At the same time, his guilt drives much of the narrative tension, whether it is guilt over the consequences of his actions, perceived failures, or the lives lost along the way. This emotional canvas allows Moura to explore the complex psychology of someone caught between duty and remorse, resilience and fragility. It's a character study that goes beyond the typical spy thriller archetype, revealing the emotional costs of resistance and survival. Marcelo's haunted soul becomes a lens through which the film examines themes of memory, justice, and redemption, making his journey not only a physical one, but a profound emotional odyssey. The film is helmed by acclaimed Brazilian filmmaker Kleber Mendonça Filho, best known internationally for his groundbreaking work on Bacurau, a genre-defying film that masterfully blends social critique with suspenseful storytelling. Mendonça Filho has built a reputation for crafting movies that do more than entertain. They challenge audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about society, politics, and history. His signature style involves weaving sharp social commentary into genre frameworks, such as thriller, sci-fi, and drama, creating stories that are both engaging and thought-provoking. In The Secret Agent, Mendonça Filho elevates this approach by teaming up directly with Wagner Moura, who not only stars in the film, but also co-wrote the script alongside the director. This collaboration brings a deeply personal and authentic voice to the story, as Moura's intimate understanding of his character and the political context informs the narrative's emotional depth and complexity. Their joint writing process allowed them to fuse historical reality with creative fiction, ensuring that the film resonates on multiple levels: political, psychological, and emotional. The director's vision shines through in the way the film balances gripping espionage thriller elements with a nuanced exploration of Brazil's painful past under the military dictatorship. Mendonça Filho's storytelling doesn't shy away from uncomfortable questions about resistance, identity, and the cost of freedom, making the film a powerful cinematic statement as well as a suspenseful drama. This partnership between director and lead actor-writer results in a film that is rich in detail, layered in meaning, and boldly original. To fully immerse viewers in the world of 1970s receive, the production team went to great lengths to recreate the era with meticulous attention to detail. Every element, from costumes to set designs, was carefully researched and crafted to authentically represent the vibrant yet politically charged atmosphere of Brazil during the late military dictatorship period. The wardrobe features period-accurate fabrics, colors, and styles that reflect both the exuberance of carnival and the everyday realities of life under surveillance and repression. The sets themselves transport the audience back to the narrow, bustling streets of Recife, filled with vintage cars, old storefronts, and public spaces bustling with locals dressed in 70s fashion. The production design balances the lively energy of the city's cultural celebrations with the gritty undercurrent of political tension, creating a tangible sense of place that feels lived in and historically accurate. Adding to the authenticity, the filmmakers employed vintage cameras and lenses reminiscent of those used during the 1970s. This choice was not merely stylistic, but a deliberate effort to replicate the grain, color saturation, and film texture characteristic of that era's cinematography. The result is a visual aesthetic that feels both nostalgic and immersive, giving audiences the sensation of stepping directly into the past. This textured look supports the film's themes, by visually contrasting the era's joyous celebrations with the shadowy, often sinister forces lurking behind the scenes. Maria Fernanda Candido delivers a powerful performance as Elza, a character who embodies both resilience and the intricate moral challenges faced by ordinary people living under a repressive regime. Elza is not just a side character or mere love interest. She represents the strength and complexity of those who quietly resist oppression while navigating the dangers of everyday life during Brazil's military dictatorship. Her character is layered. She shows moments of courage and defiance, but also vulnerability and internal conflict. Elza must constantly weigh personal survival against the urge to fight back, reflecting the difficult choices faced by many women and families during this dark period of Brazilian history. Maria Fernanda's nuanced portrayal captures these tensions with subtlety, revealing a woman who is fiercely determined yet painfully aware of the risks involved. Through Elza, the film highlights the emotional toll of repression on individuals and communities. She becomes a symbol of hope and endurance, showing how resilience often comes not from grand gestures, but from quiet persistence, small acts of bravery, and moral complexity. Maria Fernanda Candido's performance adds profound emotional depth to the story, reminding viewers that behind political conflicts lie deeply human experiences of fear, love, sacrifice, and survival. The narrative of the secret agent draws heavily from the real-life experiences of countless individuals who lived through and resisted the harsh military dictatorship that ruled Brazil from 1964 to 1985, a period marked by widespread human rights abuses, censorship, and brutal suppression of dissent. This era, often called Brazil's dark dictatorship, saw thousands of activists, students, journalists, and ordinary citizens risk their lives to oppose an authoritarian regime determined to silence opposition through fear and violence. The film's story is not a mere fictional thriller, but a tribute to these courageous resistance movements that operated in the shadows, often at great personal cost. It captures the climate of paranoia and danger that defined the time, where friends and family could suddenly disappear and trust was scarce. The characters' struggles reflect real dilemmas faced by those who fought for democracy, whether to engage in direct action, endure torture and imprisonment, or find more subtle ways to undermine the regime. By grounding the story in this historical context, the film honors the bravery and sacrifice of Brazil's political prisoners and activists. It also educates audiences unfamiliar with this chapter of history, highlighting how the fight for freedom often unfolds in hidden, complex, and deeply personal ways. This authenticity gives the movie a powerful emotional weight, reminding viewers that beneath the suspense and intrigue lie true stories of human courage against oppression. Marcelo's character, portrayed as a skilled expert in espionage technology, reflects a critical and often overlooked aspect of Cold War-era intelligence operations: the growing importance of technology in the shadowy battlefields of espionage. During the 1970s, intelligence agencies around the world increasingly relied on technological innovations to gather information, conduct surveillance, and outmaneuver opponents in a high-stakes game of secrecy and deception. In The Secret Agent, Marcelo's expertise serves as a window into this technological evolution. His skills are not just about traditional spycraft like disguise or covert meetings, but about mastering emerging tools, bugging devices, wiretaps, encrypted communications, and other early forms of digital espionage that dramatically changed how governments monitored enemies and protected secrets. This focus on tech highlights how espionage was becoming a high-tech arena, reflecting the real historical shift toward electronic surveillance during the Cold War. By centering Marcelo's abilities on technology, the film emphasizes the double-edged nature of these advancements. They could empower resistance movements by providing new ways to communicate and gather intelligence, but they also enabled regimes to tighten their grip through sophisticated monitoring and repression. Marcelo's role thus embodies this tension, illustrating how technology became both a weapon and a vulnerability in the struggle for freedom. This angle adds depth and modern relevance to the story, reminding viewers that even decades ago, the battle over information and privacy was fierce, and the stakes remain just as high today. To bring Marcelo to life with authenticity and depth, Wagner Moura committed to extensive training in vintage espionage techniques and old-school technology. Unlike the modern high-tech spy thrillers filled with digital gadgets and CGI effects, The Secret Agent is set in the 1970s, a time when spies relied heavily on mechanical devices, analog equipment, and intricate manual processes. Moura immersed himself in learning these methods to ensure his portrayal felt genuine and believable. His training included mastering the use of outdated communication tools such as rotary dial telephones, tape recorders, and film cameras, as well as understanding the mechanics of wiretapping devices and early encryption techniques. Moura also studied covert operational tactics relevant to the era, like dead drops, coded messages, and discrete surveillance maneuvers, to accurately capture the mindset and skill set of a Cold War-era intelligence agent. This dedication to the craft adds a tactile realism to Moura's performance, allowing audiences to see Marcelo's expertise not just as abstract knowledge, but as a practiced, precise skill. The physicality of handling old technology, combined with the tension of knowing each operation carries life or death consequences, brings a palpable intensity to the character. Moura's commitment underscores the film's respect for historical accuracy and deepens viewers' immersion in the period, making Marcelo's spy work feel authentic and gripping. One of the most striking and unconventional aspects of The Secret Agent is its incorporation of body horror elements and black humor, which are rarely seen together in political thrillers. This blending of genres adds a unique and unsettling layer to the film's atmosphere, amplifying the tension while also offering moments of dark levity. The body horror components, featuring unsettling, often grotesque physical transformations or manifestations, serve as a metaphor for the psychological and societal corruption under the military dictatorship. These disturbing visuals symbolize how repression distorts not only the body, but also the mind and spirit, making the terror of authoritarian control viscerally tangible. This visceral approach shocks and unsettles the audience, forcing them to confront the brutal reality behind the political facade. At the same time, the film uses black humor to break the tension and highlight the absurdity and irony inherent in the characters' dangerous lives. This humor is often dry, sardonic, and darkly witty, reflecting how people cope with fear and oppression through irony and sarcasm. It creates moments where laughter becomes a form of resistance, a way to reclaim agency in a world defined by fear and violence. Together, these elements, body horror's eerie physicality and black humor's biting irony, create a tone that is both haunting and oddly playful. This unusual combination enriches the film's narrative, making it stand out in the political thriller genre by exploring the emotional and psychological complexities of repression in a fresh, provocative way. The film's distinctive visual style owes much to the vision of cinematographer Pedro Sotero, who crafted a look that perfectly captures the complex duality of Recife during the late 1970s. Sotero's approach blends gritty realism with a vibrant, neon-lit palette that mirrors the city's contrasting moods. Its lively celebrations set against a backdrop of danger and repression. By using neon lighting and saturated colors, Sotero evokes the pulsating energy of carnival, bright streetlights, flashing costumes, and the dynamic movement of the crowds. These neon hues symbolize the city's cultural heartbeat, alive, joyous, and vibrant despite the political turmoil. Yet, through careful framing and shadow play, the cinematography also reveals the darker undercurrents beneath the surface: dimly lit alleys, tense encounters, and the ever-present sense of surveillance and threat. The gritty textures and naturalistic camera work ground the story in a tangible reality, making the danger feel immediate and palpable. This visual tension between light and darkness, festivity and fear, encapsulates Recife's spirit during this era and enhances the film's narrative. Sotero's cinematography doesn't just show us a place, it immerses us in an atmosphere charged with contradiction and suspense, inviting viewers to feel both the beauty and the menace of the world Marcelo navigates. The scene set during Carnival in the film masterfully juxtapose moments of vibrant joy with an undercurrent of lurking terror, creating a powerful symbolic layer that runs throughout the story. Carnival, traditionally a time of exuberance, freedom, and communal celebration, is portrayed here not just as a festive backdrop, but as a metaphor for the complex emotional and social masks that people were forced to wear under the oppressive military dictatorship. On the surface, the streets of Recife burst with music, dance, and colorful costumes, a joyous escape from daily hardships. Yet, beneath this exuberance lies a palpable tension, fear of being watched, betrayed, or arrested. The carnival masks become a visual metaphor for the duality of existence in such times. People literally disguise themselves to join the festivities, while figuratively hiding their true thoughts, feelings, and political beliefs to survive. These scenes highlight how the public celebration was often a fragile facade covering the private reality of oppression, paranoia, and resistance. The film uses this contrast to show that beneath the bright costumes and laughter, lives were shadowed by suspicion and danger. This duality deepens the emotional resonance of the film, reminding viewers how, in times of repression, joy itself can be a form of courage, and how survival often means hiding one's true self behind carefully crafted masks. The film's musical score, crafted by the renowned Brazilian musician Carlinhos Brown, is a masterful fusion of traditional Brazilian rhythms and suspenseful electronic soundscapes, perfectly reflecting the film's thematic contrasts. Brown's composition draws from the rich musical heritage of Brazil, incorporating vibrant Afro-Brazilian percussion, samba beats, and carnival-inspired melodies, immersing the audience in the cultural heart of Recife. At the same time, Brown weaves in modern, tense electronic elements that heighten the film's atmosphere of danger and uncertainty. These synth-driven sounds and unsettling tones underscore the espionage thriller's suspense, amplifying moments of paranoia and conflict. The interplay between rhythmic warmth and digital coldness mirrors the movie's narrative tension between cultural celebration and political repression. This hybrid score does more than set a mood, it acts as an emotional conduit, guiding viewers through the film's shifts from joy to fear, hope to despair. Brown's music anchors the story in its Brazilian roots while pushing the sonic boundaries to capture the era's anxieties, making the soundtrack a vital, dynamic part of the cinematic experience. At the heart of The Secret Agent lies Marcelo's profound inner conflict, which drives the film's emotional core and propels the narrative forward. Torn between his fierce desire to protect those he loves and his growing awareness of the brutal realities of the military dictatorship, Marcelo embodies the difficult choices faced by many living under oppressive regimes. This internal struggle is not just a plot device, but a deeply human dilemma. Marcelo's role as a skilled technology expert involved in espionage pulls him into a dangerous game of secrets and betrayal. He must constantly weigh the risk of resistance against the immediate safety of his family and friends. His guilt and trauma weigh heavily, fueling a sense of responsibility, but also fear, uncertainty, and isolation. This moral tension creates a gripping psychological drama, showing how personal and political struggles are inseparable in times of repression. Marcelo's decisions highlight the sacrifices individuals must make, whether to stay silent and survive or to risk everything to challenge injustice. His journey invites viewers to reflect on courage, loyalty, and the cost of freedom, making the story resonate far beyond its historical setting. Marcelo's inner conflict drives the narrative: protect loved ones or fight the regime's brutality. At the heart of the film lies Marcelo's profound internal struggle, which serves as the emotional engine driving the story forward. Torn between his deep love and responsibility for those closest to him and his growing awareness of the military regime's brutal oppression, Marcelo is caught in a painful dilemma. On one hand, he wants to shield his family and friends from harm, preserving their safety amid dangerous political upheaval. On the other, he feels compelled to resist and expose the injustice, even if it means risking everything, including his own life. This conflict humanizes Marcelo, transforming him from a mere spy into a relatable figure, wrestling with universal questions of loyalty, sacrifice, and moral courage. His choices and hesitations create tension and suspense, as viewers are drawn into the high stakes of living and resisting under dictatorship. Marcelo's journey explores the complex reality that fighting oppression is never black and white. It's deeply personal and fraught with impossible decisions. Udokier's character Hans introduces a global espionage angle, representing foreign interests in Brazilian politics. Adding a broader geopolitical dimension to the story, veteran actor Udo Kier plays Hans, a shadowy figure symbolizing the international forces at play during Brazil's military dictatorship. Hans embodies the influence and interference of foreign powers, particularly Western intelligence agencies, who saw Brazil as a strategic battleground in the wider Cold War struggle between capitalism and communism. Through Hans, the film reveals how Brazil's internal conflicts were entangled with global espionage, covert operations, and foreign agendas that often prioritize political stability over human rights. His presence highlights the complexity of Marcelo's mission, showing that local resistance was part of a larger international web of intrigue and manipulation. This character enriches the narrative by reminding viewers that Brazil's dictatorship didn't exist in isolation, but was deeply influenced by the global tensions and power plays of the era. To preserve a sense of realism and immersion, director Kleber Mendonça Filho deliberately chose to rely on practical effects rather than CGI, especially during the film's intense chase sequences and espionage moments. This decision reflects a commitment to authenticity, grounding the story in tangible, physical reality rather than the often polished and artificial feel of digital effects. By using practical stunts, real locations, and physical props, the film generates a raw and immediate energy that heightens suspense and draws the audience closer to the character's peril. The tangible nature of these effects makes every foot chase, close call, or covert operation feel real and risky, improving the stakes and emotional impact. This approach also complements the film's period setting, as the 1970s world it depicts was one without digital trickery. Practical effects honor the era's filmmaking techniques and the gritty atmosphere the story demands. The palpable tension in these scenes comes from knowing what you see is grounded in real physicality, creating a visceral experience that resonates deeply with viewers. The director used practical effects over CGI to maintain authenticity, especially in tense chase and espionage scenes. In The Secret Agent, director Kleber Mendonça Filho deliberately chose to rely on practical effects rather than CGI to preserve a tangible, gritty authenticity throughout the film, especially during high-stakes chase sequences and tense espionage moments. This choice roots the film firmly in its historical setting, avoiding the slick, polished feel that computer-generated imagery can sometimes impart. By using real stunts, physical sets, and practical props, the film captures a raw intensity that heightens the suspense. The visceral impact of tangible effects, like a car chase through crowded streets or a stealthy infiltration in cramped, dimly lit locations, engages the audience on a more physical level. The natural imperfections and unpredictability of practical effects mirror the unpredictable dangers faced by the characters, making every close call and escape feel immediate and dangerous. This approach also aligns with the film's broader commitment to historical accuracy and grounded storytelling, enhancing the immersive experience and honoring the real-life stories inspiring the movie. Gabriel León's character Bobby represents youthful idealism clashing with harsh political realities. Gabriel León's portrayal of Bobby brings to the screen a compelling representation of youthful energy and idealism colliding with the brutal political realities of 1970s Brazil. Bobby is a young activist, full of hope, passion, and a fervent belief in justice, embodying the spirit of a generation eager to challenge authoritarianism and fight for democratic freedoms. However, as the story unfolds, Bobby's idealism is tested by the ruthless repression and moral ambiguity surrounding him. The stark contrast between his aspirations and the violent, oppressive regime forces Bobby, and through him, the audience, to grapple with the painful compromises, betrayals, and sacrifices that resistance often demands. Leona's nuanced performance captures this tension beautifully, revealing the bittersweet journey from youthful optimism to the sobering awareness of political complexity. Bobby's arc underscores a central theme of the film, that the fight for freedom is not only a political battle, but also a deeply personal, often painful coming of age. The Secret Agent made a remarkable debut at the Cannes Film Festival 2025, where it received widespread critical acclaim and secured a rare and prestigious sweep of major awards, including Best Director for Kleber Mendonça Filho and Best Actor for Wagner Moura. This achievement not only highlights the film's artistic excellence, but also marks a significant moment for Brazilian cinema on the global stage. Winning these top honors at Cannes, one of the world's most influential film festivals, is a testament to the film's powerful storytelling, masterful direction, and outstanding performances. It underscores how the movie resonates beyond its local context, connecting with international audiences through its universal themes of resistance, trauma, and resilience. This success shines a spotlight on Brazil's rich film industry, showcasing its ability to produce world-class cinema that blends cultural specificity with broad appeal. The Cannes recognition also paves the way for greater international distribution and attention, helping stories from Brazil's history reach a wider audience and fostering a renewed interest in Latin American political narratives in global cinema. Critics across the board have lauded Wagner Moura's performance in The Secret Agent, describing it as one of his finest, and praising the nuanced balance he strikes between vulnerability and steely resolve. Moura's portrayal of Marcelo goes beyond the typical spy archetype, diving deep into the emotional and psychological scars left by trauma and political oppression. Reviewers highlighted how Moura conveys the character's inner turmoil with subtlety. His moments of quiet introspection and visible pain contrasted with sudden flashes of intense determination and courage. This layered approach allows audiences to connect with Marcelo on a profoundly human level, seeing him not just as a secret agent, but as a man burdened by guilt, fear, and the weight of impossible choices. Many critics noted that Moura's performance is a masterclass in restraint and power, where even the smallest gestures and expressions communicate volumes. This complexity elevates the film's narrative, making Marcelo's journey gripping and emotionally resonant, and reaffirming Moura's status as one of Brazil's most talented actors. One of the standout achievements of The Secret Agent is its expertly crafted screenplay, which skillfully weaves real historical events from Brazil's military dictatorship era into a gripping, suspenseful narrative. The script manages the delicate balance of honoring true political struggles and resistance while maintaining a tight, engaging story full of complex characters and emotional depth. By grounding the plot in actual moments of political repression, surveillance, and espionage, the screenplay offers viewers an authentic glimpse into a dark chapter of Brazilian history. However, it never feels like a dry historical reenactment. Instead, the real events are seamlessly integrated with fictional elements, heightening suspense and deepening character motivations. The script also excels in developing rich, multi-dimensional characters whose personal conflicts and relationships reflect the broader political turmoil. This character-driven approach makes the historical stakes feel immediate and relatable, allowing audiences to experience history through the eyes of individuals struggling to survive and resist. Ultimately, the screenplay's success lies in its ability to educate, thrill, and emotionally engage viewers simultaneously, creating a film that is both enlightening and captivating. The Secret Agent employs a carefully crafted narrative structure that strategically uses flashbacks to gradually unveil Marcelo's past, effectively maintaining an air of mystery and suspense throughout the film. Instead of presenting his backstory all at once, The movie reveals fragments of Marcelo's experiences and trauma bit by bit, allowing the audience to piece together his motivations and the reasons behind his current struggles. These flashbacks serve multiple purposes. They provide crucial context for Marcelo's emotional state, illustrate the stakes of his espionage activities, and highlight key moments of betrayal, loss, and moral conflict. By spacing out these revelations, the film keeps viewers engaged and curious, encouraging them to actively follow Marcelo's journey and empathize with his inner turmoil. This non-linear storytelling approach also mirrors the fragmented and haunted nature of memory, reflecting how trauma disrupts one's perception of time and reality. The slow unfolding of Marcelo's past deepens the character's complexity, making the narrative richer and more immersive while sustaining tension until the full picture comes into focus near the film's climax. To authentically portray the complex and turbulent era of Brazil's military dictatorship, the filmmakers of The Secret Agent went beyond typical research by actively consulting historians, political experts, and former activists who lived through the period. This collaboration ensured that the film's political and social details were not only accurate, but also deeply respectful of the real struggles faced by those who resisted oppression. By involving individuals who experienced firsthand the repression, surveillance, and acts of courage, the filmmakers gained invaluable insights into the nuances of the era, such as the language used by activists, the covert operations of the regime, and the emotional toll on families and communities. These consultations helped the screenplay and production design capture the authentic atmosphere of fear, suspicion, and hope that permeated daily life. This commitment to historical truth also guided casting, dialogue, and character motivations, grounding the story in reality while allowing the narrative to explore the human side of political resistance. The involvement of these consultants elevated the film's credibility and emotional impact, creating a powerful tribute to the bravery of those who fought against Brazil's dictatorship. The Secret Agent delves deeply into themes of identity and resistance, exploring how individuals struggle to maintain their sense of self while living under the constant scrutiny of an oppressive regime. These themes resonate powerfully, not only within the historical context of 1970s Brazil, but also in today's world, where issues of global surveillance, privacy, and authoritarianism remain urgent and relevant. The film examines how political oppression forces characters to wear multiple masks, hiding their true beliefs, feelings, and identities to survive. Marcelo and others must navigate a dangerous world where trust is scarce, and even the closest relationships are fraught with suspicion. This tension highlights the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring desire for freedom and authenticity, even when external forces seek to erase individuality. In a broader sense, the movie invites viewers to reflect on contemporary issues like mass data collection, government monitoring, and the erosion of personal freedoms. It underscores the ongoing importance of resistance, both overt and subtle, and the courage it takes to preserve one's identity in a world where privacy is increasingly compromised. By drawing these parallels, The Secret Agent not only tells a compelling historical story, but also sparks critical conversations about the nature of power, control, and the fight for human dignity in the modern era. One of the film's standout elements is the surprisingly accurate depiction of Marcelo's hacking scenes, which showcase the ingenuity and technical resourcefulness of espionage during the 1970s. Unlike the flashy, unrealistic portrayals common in modern spy thrillers, The Secret Agent grounds these moments in the true limitations and innovations of the era's technology. Marcelo's use of bulky analog equipment, wiring, and early computer systems reflects the painstaking, manual nature of hacking at the time, long before the era of digital interfaces and high-speed internet. The scenes highlight the complexity of the task, building devices from scratch, tapping phone lines, decoding signals, and circumventing mechanical security systems, all requiring both deep technical knowledge and creative problem-solving. This authenticity adds an important layer to Marcelo's character, illustrating his dedication and brilliance in a time when technology was far less accessible and far more challenging to manipulate. It also immerses the audience in the tactile, gritty world of Cold War espionage, making the tension and stakes feel more immediate and believable. The filmmaker's commitment to technical accuracy was supported by expert consultants and careful research, contributing to the film's overall credibility and engaging the audience in a fascinating, historically grounded spy experience. The film's climactic sequence during Carnival stands out as a breathtaking technical and artistic achievement, skillfully blending the chaos of massive crowd scenes with moments of intense personal drama. This finale encapsulates the movie's core themes: celebration shadowed by danger, freedom entangled with fear, and does so through a masterful orchestration of scale and intimacy. On one level, the filmmakers recreate the explosive energy of Reciefe's Carnival with thousands of extras, vibrant costumes, and pulsating music, immersing viewers in a sensory feast that feels both overwhelming and exhilarating. Capturing such a large-scale event on film demands precise choreography and coordination, from camera movements threading through the crowd to lighting that preserves the festive atmosphere while highlighting moments of suspense. Simultaneously, the camera zooms in on Marcelo and other key characters, weaving their personal stakes and emotional turmoil into the wider spectacle. This intimate focus amid the crowd's swirl intensifies the tension. Every glance, whispered conversation, or subtle gesture takes on amplified significance against the backdrop of revelry. Technically, the sequence utilizes a blend of practical effects, dynamic cinematography, and sound design that shifts fluidly between the grand and the granular. The result is a climax that feels both epic and deeply human, capturing the dual nature of the story's setting: a society striving for joy and expression even as it faces crushing repression. Reviewers across the international film circuit have hailed The Secret Agent, or Agente Secreto, as a triumph of modern political cinema, highlighting its cinematic bravado, a fearless and stylistically bold approach to storytelling. From its pulsating 1970s Recife setting to its intricate narrative structure, the film refuses to take the easy route. Instead, director Kleber Mendonça Filho plunges the viewer into a world where visual flair meets historical reckoning. Long tracking shots, saturated neon palettes, and unnerving sound design combine to craft an aesthetic experience as arresting as the story it tells. But beneath the film's technical mastery lies something even more affecting: what critics have called its stark portrayal of repression with a human face. Unlike many political thrillers that present authoritarianism as a faceless force, The Secret Agent personalizes the consequences of state violence. Through the eyes of Marcelo, played with aching intensity by Wagner Moura, the audience witnesses how surveillance, fear, and betrayal corrode not only public life, but also the private soul. The regime isn't just a machine, it's a presence in every room, a pressure in every conversation, a question mark in every relationship. This duality, audacious cinema paired with intimate political truth, is what makes The Secret Agent not just an important film, but a deeply affecting one. It tells a story of an era, yes, but more importantly, it reminds us that oppression is never abstract. It lives in people, and it leaves scars on their hearts, not just on the pages of history. Wagner Moura revealed in interviews that working with Kleber Mendonça Filho was not just a professional collaboration, it was an emotional excavation. Known for his intense roles in films like Elite Squad and as Pablo Escobar in Narcos, Moura is no stranger to complex characters. But in The Secret Agent, he admitted that Mendonça Filho pushed him into emotional terrain he hadn't yet explored as an actor. Marcelo wasn't just a character Moura shared in a Cannes roundtable. He was a vessel of memory, fear, trauma. Kleber forced me to sit with that. He wouldn't let me play it safe. The director's immersive style, long, quiet takes, intimate blocking, and often unspoken tension required Moura to strip away performance and instead simply exist in the pain, paranoia, and quiet resistance of his character. For Moura, the role became a confrontation with Brazil's own history of silence and suppression. There were days on set when I felt hollowed out, he confessed. Not because of the physical scenes, but because the weight of what Marcelo carried was too familiar, too real. Critics have noted the result, a performance that feels lived in and utterly exposed. Under Mendonça Filho's direction, Moura doesn't just portray a man haunted by the past, he becomes it. It's a career-defining turn, forged not in comfort but in vulnerability. And it's one of the reasons The Secret Agent resonates far beyond the screen. The Secret Agent was shot almost entirely on location in Recife, a choice that infused the film with a visceral sense of place and authenticity. Rather than relying on studio sets or digital reconstructions, director Kleber Mendonça Filho brought his crew into the very streets, alleyways, and colonial facades where history itself unfolded decades earlier. The result is more than just visual realism, it's atmospheric immersion. The humid air, the chipped pastel walls, the neon flicker of vintage streetlights, and the echo of samba drums drifting through narrow corridors all form an invisible character in the film. Recife doesn't just serve as a backdrop, it breathes, listens, hides, and remembers. It becomes a living, haunted witness to Marcelo's story. For Mendonça Filho, a Recife native, filming there was not only a cinematic decision, it was a personal one. He knew where the shadows naturally fall in certain neighborhoods, which buildings still whisper of the dictatorship years, and how the carnival energy can both mask and amplify political unrest. Critics and audiences alike have praised this commitment to location. Shooting in Recife added layers of texture and emotional truth to the film, grounding the surreal tension in a reality that is unmistakably Brazilian, yet universally resonant. The Secret Agent is not merely a political thriller, it is a living archive of cultural memory, a bold cinematic reckoning with Brazil's fractured past. It resurrects the ghost of a dictatorship not as distant history, but as unresolved trauma that continues to echo through generations. Through masterful direction by Kleber Mendonça Filho, the film transforms historical oppression into an urgent human narrative framed with artistry, courage, and restraint. It is, at its core, a story about watching and being watched, about silence and resistance, about the cost of remembering in a world that insists on forgetting. Wagner Moura's devastatingly intimate performance gives flesh to those buried beneath official narratives, while Maria Fernanda Candido and the supporting cast anchor the film in emotional authenticity. More than a national story, The Secret Agent signals a coming of age for Brazilian cinema on the world stage, a reminder that the most powerful political statements often arrive wrapped not in speeches, but in stories. It doesn't just earn its place in global cinema, it demands it. The Secret Agent, or Agente Secreto, draws deliberate visual and tonal inspiration from the great paranoia thrillers of the 1970s. Films like Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation and Costa Gavras said, but rather than simply mimicking these influences, director Kleber Mendonça Filho transposes them into Brazil's own haunted topography. What results is not homage but transformation, a cinematic grammar of fear that speaks fluently in both global and local dialects. From the very first frames, the viewer is immersed in a mood of quiet dread. Long, lingering shots through glass doors, hallway reflections, and tape recordings echo the isolation and surveillance themes found in American and European thrillers. But in The Secret Agent, these stylistic choices do not exist in a vacuum. They are fused with the memory of a nation that lived under the real heavy hand of a military dictatorship, a nation that hasn't fully reconciled with the ghosts that era left behind. Marcelo, played by Wagner Moura, is not a confident agent but a man fragmented by time. The mechanisms of paranoia, distrust, self-erasure, the blurring of truth and illusion aren't just cinematic motifs in this film. They are part of the DNA of the character and his world. The viewer isn't watching Marcelo fall apart so much as watching Brazil attempt and fail to forget its own surveillance state. But what makes Mendonça Filho's approach so unique is his refusal to stylize fear into spectacle. Instead, he uses it to disorient and destabilize the viewer, just as the regime did to its people. There are moments where sound cuts out, or conversations are interrupted by fragments of music or static. Techniques that seem familiar to fans of classic thrillers. But here, they serve to recreate the psychological state of an entire society in crisis. Even the mise-en-scene in The Secret Agent speaks the language of paranoia. Blinds half drawn over cracked windows, analog listening devices buried in drawers, microphones hidden in plants. These are not props, but relics, tools of both repression and remembrance. In this world, walls don't just have ears, they have memory. Mendonça Filho's camera doesn't give the audience comfort or orientation. Like Marcelo, it meanders, retreats, and hides. There are tracking shots that lead nowhere, close-ups that isolate instead of connect. Viewers are made to feel like eavesdroppers, accomplices in a world where safety lies in silence and truth can only be spoken in code. And yet, for all its darkness, The Secret Agent also contains defiance. In turning the genre of the paranoia thriller inward, into the streets of Recife, into the haunted memories of the protagonist, Mendonça Filho gives Brazilian cinema a voice that refuses to be silent. He takes the codes of Cold War storytelling and rewrites them in tropical hues, samba rhythms, and the ache of generational trauma. In doing so, The Secret Agent becomes more than a thriller. It becomes a reclamation dot. One of the most striking aspects of The Secret Agent is not what is spoken, but what is withheld. In an era defined by surveillance, betrayal, and authoritarian control, words become dangerous, so much so that silence takes on a life of its own. Director Kleber Mendonça Filho understands this innately, and in scene after scene, he replaces exposition with atmosphere, noise with quiet tension, and dialogue with long, loaded silences. The result is a film that breathes paranoia, slowly, deeply, and in every frame. Throughout the film, Wagner Moura's Marcelo exists in a state of guarded communication. When he meets old allies or former informants, their conversations are veiled, indirect, always circling meaning, never speaking it aloud. Is the air clear? Becomes a more vital question than any direct query about loyalty or danger. Every word is a risk, every sentence a potential betrayal. In one memorable scene, Marcelo visits a bookstore in downtown Recife, a rendezvous point coded in a half-forgotten signal from years past. He speaks to the owner, an aging poet, but their dialogue is curiously sparse. What matters isn't said aloud, it's passed through the way their eyes linger too long, the hand that subtly taps Morse code into the countertop, the shared gaze that flickers when a plainclothes officer walks in. It's a moment dense with danger and history, yet almost devoid of speech. This resistance to over-explanation is central to the film's aesthetic. Mendonça Filho doesn't coddle the audience with clear motivations or backstory-heavy monologues. Instead, he trusts the viewer to feel what isn't said, to listen for the gaps, the breath held just a moment too long. It's a storytelling method rooted not in plot, but in memory and fear. In the Brazil of 1977, truth was dangerous, and clarity could be lethal. Even in private, Marcelo speaks carefully, cautiously. Alone in his apartment, he mutters phrases under his breath before deleting them from cassette recordings. His own voice becomes suspect. This internalized censorship reflects the experience of countless Brazilians who learn to think twice, even in their own minds. Moura conveys this tension masterfully, a man who once used words to resist, now afraid they might betray him. What emerges is a world where silence is not emptiness but density. Every quiet moment is thick with meaning. Every glance, a sentence. Every hesitation, a confession. This approach demands something rare from audiences, patience and trust. But the payoff is immense. By refusing to over-explain, The Secret Agent respects the viewer's intelligence, and more importantly, it mirrors the psychological landscape of life under authoritarianism. a place where people learn to survive by not speaking, by listening instead, by watching every word and everyone. In this way, the film becomes a masterclass in subtext, a thriller not of car chases and gunfights, but of tension laced into every interaction. It's not just a portrait of political repression, it's an anatomy of silence and the human cost of learning to speak only in code. In The Secret Agent, Recife is far more than just a setting. It is a living, breathing entity that embodies the fractured psyche of a nation under siege. Director Kleber Mendonça Filho masterfully uses the city's urban landscape to reflect the film's central themes of decay, entrapment, and ceaseless surveillance. Every crumbling colonial facade, every narrow alley, every shadowed stairway becomes a visual metaphor for the oppressive system and the fragile lives navigating within it. The city's architecture tells its own story. The peeling paint on pastel buildings suggests both age and neglect, hinting at a society that has long been scarred by political violence and cultural erasure. The labyrinthine streets are not just geographic, they are psychological mazes, trapping Marcelo and others in a complex web of fear and suspicion. Walking through these claustrophobic passageways feels like slipping through the corridors of power itself, dark, confining, and inescapable. High above the streets, watchtowers and government offices loom, their cold concrete and barred windows, a stark contrast to the vibrant life pulsing below. These structures are not just physical presences, they are symbols of the military regime's omnipresent gaze. Surveillance here is not abstract, it is spatial and architectural. The city watches its inhabitants just as they watch each other. Mendonça Filho's cinematography captures this dynamic with a haunting intimacy. Long shots peer through barred windows and broken shutters, framing characters as if they are trapped birds, watched and waiting. The use of natural light filtering through dusty air creates an atmosphere thick with tension, where shadows lurk not only around corners but within the characters themselves. Recife's colonial legacy also adds layers of historical resonance. The city's blend of Portuguese colonial architecture and tropical decay becomes a metaphor for Brazil's unresolved past, its violent colonization mirrored by the brutal dictatorship that followed centuries later. The buildings, with their faded grandeur, whisper of histories buried beneath layers of time and repression. This architectural symbolism extends to key narrative moments. For example, when Marcelo hides in abandoned buildings or secret rooms, these spaces evoke the hidden lives many lived during the dictatorship, forced into secrecy, forced into survival. The crumbling walls become both sanctuary and prison, protective yet precarious. In essence, Recife is a character unto itself, both victim and perpetrator, memory and forgetting. Its physical environment externalizes the psychological landscape of Marcelo's journey and the nation's struggle. Through the city's labyrinth, the secret agent explores how spaces are never neutral. They carry the weight of history, politics, and personal trauma. By grounding the film so deeply in Recife's architecture, Mendonça Filho invites the audience to see beyond the surface, to read the city as a palimpsest, where stories of repression and resistance are written into stone and mortar, waiting to be uncovered. In The Secret Agent, amidst the swirling clouds of paranoia, silence, and decay, the character of Elza, played with profound grace and strength by Maria Fernanda Candido, emerges as the film's vital moral axis. While Marcelo drifts through the fog of memory and fear, Elza anchors the narrative in a determined insistence on truth and accountability, embodying the human spirit's refusal to be erased. Elza is more than just a supporting character. She represents the enduring fight for justice in the face of overwhelming repression. In a world where voices are stifled and histories rewritten, she becomes a beacon of clarity and courage. Her presence reminds viewers that beneath the layers of secrecy and fear lies a fundamental yearning for acknowledgement, a need to confront the past rather than bury it. Throughout the film, Elza's actions reveal her as a figure who refuses complicity. Where others choose silence to survive, she chooses to speak, to bear witness, and to resist the erasure of memory. Her interactions with Marcelo are charged not just with personal history, but with the weight of collective responsibility. She challenges Marcelo's retreat into silence, confronting him with the cost of forgetting and the necessity of facing painful truths. Maria Fernanda. Candido's performance imbues Elza with a quiet strength that balances vulnerability and resolve. Her eyes carry the fatigue of a long struggle, but also the fire of unwavering determination. In moments of confrontation, she does not shout or rage. Instead, her calm persistence becomes more powerful than any outburst, conveying the dignity and resilience of those who have endured oppression. Elza's character also symbolizes the countless women whose roles in political resistance have often been overlooked. Through her, the film honors the unsung heroes who risked everything to preserve memory and demand justice, often while navigating personal sacrifices. Narratively, Elza serves as the counterpoint to Marcelo's internalized fear and regret. Where he hides behind shadows and silence, she steps into the light, demanding that the ghosts of the past be acknowledged openly. Her moral clarity cuts through the fog of uncertainty, reminding both the characters and the audience that repression is not just political, it is deeply personal. Her presence underscores one of the film's central messages, that accountability is not optional and that history's wounds cannot heal without truth. Elza embodies the hope that even in the darkest times, there are those who will stand firm, bearing the torch of remembrance and justice. In this way, Elza transforms from a character into a symbol, an emblem of resistance, memory, and the enduring human spirit that refuses to be silenced. In The Secret Agent, sound does far more than merely accompany images. It becomes a vital character in its own right, weaving tension and narrative depth into the film's very fabric. Kleber Mendonca Filho and his sound team craft an auditory landscape that immerses the audience in Marcelo's fractured world, where every creak, whisper, and hum carries weight beyond its surface. From the low, persistent whir of analog tape recorders, devices that capture secrets, fears, and confessions, to the echoing footsteps in long, dimly lit corridors, the film's sound design is meticulously constructed to keep viewers on edge, even during moments of relative stillness. These sounds become the invisible pulse of the film, reminding us that surveillance is constant, that silence itself is a form of control. The hum of an old radio playing faint samba melodies filters through several scenes, evoking the cultural heartbeat of Recife, even as it contrasts starkly with the oppressive mood. This delicate layering of music and ambient noise blurs the line between everyday life and the ever-present threat of political repression. Radio transmissions crackle intermittently, sometimes clear, often distorted, symbols of fragmented communication, and the blurred lines between truth and misinformation during the dictatorship. These audio fragments evoke a world where voices are intercepted, messages are coded, and every sound might carry hidden meaning. Moreover, the film's strategic use of silence amplifies tension. In many scenes, dialogue gives way to an unsettling quiet, punctuated only by the faint mechanical noises of recording equipment or the distant cityscape. This silence is pregnant with unease, echoing Marcelo's internal isolation and the pervasive atmosphere of mistrust. The subtle layering of environmental sounds, the drip of water in a neglected building, the rustling of papers, the distant murmur of street life, creates a rich soundscape that grounds the story in its physical setting while underscoring themes of memory and decay. The sound design also mirrors Marcelo's psychological state. As his grip on reality loosens, the auditory world becomes fragmented and disorienting. Sounds overlap, distort, or fade unpredictably, placing the audience inside his fractured mind. This auditory fragmentation intensifies the film's exploration of trauma, paranoia, and the elusiveness of truth. In essence, sound in The Secret Agent is a silent storyteller, An unseen force that conveys what words cannot, that fills the spaces between characters' guarded conversations, and that sustains the film's relentless tension. It draws the viewer deeper into the emotional and political landscape, reminding us that in a world of repression, what is heard and what is silenced is often more powerful than what is seen. In The Secret Agent, sound transcends its usual role as mere accompaniment and becomes a powerful narrative force, breathing life into scenes, shaping mood, and echoing the omnipresent fear that shadows every moment. Director Kleber Mendonca Filho and his sound team meticulously craft an auditory landscape that reflects the film's core themes of surveillance, repression, and memory. Throughout the film, the persistent hum of analog tape recorders reminds viewers that secrets are constantly captured and stored, just as lives are scrutinized and dissected under the watchful eyes of the regime. These machines, old yet unyielding, symbolize the inescapable reach of authoritarian control. Nothing is truly private. Footsteps reverberate down empty, echoing corridors, amplifying the solitude and paranoia that envelop Marcelo and those around him. The use of these ambient sounds creates a tactile sense of space, immersing the audience in the claustrophobic environments where danger lurks unseen. Layered softly beneath scenes, faint samba rhythms and distant radio broadcasts bring a bittersweet cultural texture to the film, juxtaposing Brazil's vibrant spirit with the dark weight of oppression. These sounds offer brief, poignant reminders of life continuing beyond fear, a heartbeat beneath the heavy silence of repression. Intermittent static and crackling radio transmissions evoke the fragmented communication networks of the dictatorship era, hinting at coded messages, intercepted conversations, and the pervasive atmosphere of mistrust. The distortion becomes a metaphor for the blurred boundaries between truth, propaganda, and fear. Moments of silence are equally potent. Deliberate pauses punctuate tense scenes, allowing the weight of unspoken thoughts and suppressed emotions to resonate. In these quiet spaces, the absence of sound speaks volumes, mirroring Marcelo's internalized fear and the societal pressure to remain silent. As the narrative progresses, the soundscape becomes increasingly disjointed, mirroring Marcelo's unraveling psyche. Overlapping noises, fading voices, and distorted echoes immerse the audience in his fractured reality, where past and present collide and the line between memory and delusion blurs. In The Secret Agent, sound is never incidental. It is a silent storyteller, a vessel of history, emotion, and political tension. It envelops the viewer, guiding them through Marcelo's labyrinth of fear, loss, and resistance, and reminds us that in a world of surveillance and repression, the subtlest sound can carry the heaviest weight. To fully inhabit Marcelo, a man haunted by his past and burdened by decades of political and personal trauma, Wagner Moura underwent a profound transformation, both physically and emotionally. This was not simply a role to play, but a journey into the depths of a fractured soul, a vessel for Brazil's collective memory of repression. Moura deliberately altered his appearance to reflect Marcelo's weariness and the weight of years spent in the shadows. He gained weight and allowed his face to age naturally, softening the sharp charisma he's known for into something more subdued and world-weary. This physical change signals to the audience that Marcelo is no longer the confident secret agent of his youth, but a man marked by loss, regret, and the erosion of hope. Beyond mere appearance, Moura chose to temper his usual intensity, opting instead for a quieter, more internalized performance style. His portrayal is one of simmering tension, a man who carries storms beneath calm surfaces. This restraint creates a palpable sense of emotional exhaustion, where pain and fear are held tightly inside, barely emerging, yet always present. Moura's approach to Marcelo reflects the complexity of living under and surviving authoritarian regimes. Marcelo is not a heroic figure. He is deeply flawed, often complicit, and riddled with guilt. Moura's nuanced performance captures this ambiguity, avoiding simple binaries of victim and perpetrator. Instead, He reveals a man who has been both shaped and broken by history, struggling to reconcile his past actions with his present silence. The actor's transformation also extends into his physicality. His movements are deliberate and sometimes hesitant, embodying a body that has learned caution as a survival mechanism. His eyes reveal layers of memory and pain, flickering with flashes of what once was and what can never be again. Moura's Marcelo is a man trapped between worlds, unable to fully engage with the present because of the weight of history he carries. This deep commitment to authenticity adds immeasurable emotional resonance to the film. Moura doesn't just act Marcelo, he becomes him, inviting audiences to experience the psychological toll of living through repression, the alienation of betrayal, and the slow unraveling of self in a society that demands silence. Through this transformative performance, Wagner Moura elevates The Secret Agent beyond a political thriller into a profound character study, a meditation on memory, identity, and the enduring scars of a nation's darkest chapters. In The Secret Agent, director Kleber Mendonça Filho demonstrates his remarkable ability to weave political allegory seamlessly into a deeply personal narrative. His direction is a masterclass in subtlety, eschewing bombast and spectacle for quiet, tension-filled moments that resonate with emotional and historical weight. This approach allows the film to function simultaneously as a suspenseful thriller and a poignant meditation on Brazil's fraught past. Mendonça Filho's vision is rooted in a profound respect for complexity. He refuses to simplify the political realities of the dictatorship into clear-cut villains and heroes. Instead, he explores the shades of gray, the moral ambiguities, the compromises, and the fractures within families and communities torn apart by fear and ideology. This nuanced portrayal makes the film's political allegory all the more compelling and authentic. The director's meticulous attention to atmosphere shapes the film's haunting tone. His use of long, lingering shots invites the audience to inhabit the spaces Marcelo navigates, not just physically, but psychologically. These moments of stillness become charged with unease, reflecting the constant undercurrent of surveillance and suspicion. Mendonça Filho's framing and composition often isolate characters within their environments, visually reinforcing their emotional and social alienation. Through subtle visual cues, the way light falls across a character's face, the positioning of figures behind glass or bars, he conveys themes of entrapment and invisibility. The director's deft control over pacing heightens the film's suspense without resorting to traditional thriller tropes. Tension builds gradually, rooted in the character's silences, glances, and withheld truths. This slow burn demands active engagement from the audience, mirroring the painstaking process of uncovering historical truths. Mendonça Filho also employs symbolism with restraint but potency. Objects like tape recorders, locked drawers, and faded photographs are not mere props, but narrative devices loaded with meaning, each telling stories of memory, loss, and the search for justice. His direction elevates performances, allowing actors like Wagner Moura and Maria Fernanda Candido to explore their characters' depths without overt exposition. The result is a film that feels lived in and authentic, where every gesture and glance carries emotional and political significance. In The Secret Agent, Mendonça Filho crafts a cinematic language that speaks to Brazil's history while engaging universal themes of repression, resistance, and the human cost of political violence. His direction transforms a suspense thriller into a profound cultural statement, one that lingers in the viewer's mind long after the credits roll. In The Secret Agent, betrayal is not just a plot device, it is a pervasive, corrosive force that seeps into every relationship, every whispered conversation, and every glance filled with suspicion. The film explores how oppressive regimes fracture trust, turning allies into enemies and friends into informants, often through fear and coercion. Marcelo's journey is haunted by personal betrayals that mirror the wider societal collapse under the dictatorship. The lines between loyalty and treachery blur, forcing characters to make impossible choices. Those who once stood side by side are forced apart by suspicion and survival instinct, and the emotional fallout is devastating. Wagner Moura's portrayal of Marcelo captures this deep internal conflict. Marcelo is both betrayer and betrayed. His own actions in the past continue to haunt him, while he fears betrayal from those closest to him. This duality creates a powerful tension as he grapples with guilt and paranoia. The film also delves into the impact of betrayal on families and communities. The intimacy of betrayal, the quiet tipping of one's moral compass under pressure, illustrates how political repression invades the personal sphere. Trust becomes fragile, relationships become transactional, and isolation deepens. Director Kleber Mendonça Filho uses visual motifs, such as shattered glass, locked doors, and shadowed corridors, to symbolize broken trust and concealed dangers. These images reinforce the omnipresent threat of betrayal, where no space feels safe. Beyond personal betrayal, the film critiques the betrayal of a nation's ideals. The dictatorship represents a collective betrayal of democratic principles, human rights, and the social fabric itself. Marcelo's story becomes a microcosm of this larger historical trauma. Ultimately, The Secret Agent portrays betrayal not as a singular act, but as a pervasive condition of life under tyranny, an ongoing psychological and moral battleground where loyalty is tested, fractured, and often sacrificed for survival. At the heart of The Secret Agent lies a profound meditation on memory, the fragile, contested space where personal trauma and national history intertwine. The film confronts the painful tension between remembering and forgetting, showing how these forces shape identity, justice, and the possibility of healing. Marcelo embodies this struggle. Haunted by his past and the choices he made during Brazil's dictatorship, he wrestles with the burden of memory. His silence is both a shield and a prison, a way to protect himself from pain, yet also a barrier to reconciliation. Through his journey, the film explores how forgetting can be a survival mechanism, but also a source of profound loss. Director Kleber Mendonça Filho uses visual motifs to evoke this theme. Faded photographs, worn-out cassette tapes, and dilapidated buildings become symbols of a history that refuses to be erased. These relics remind us that the past is never truly gone. It lingers in the textures of everyday life, demanding acknowledgement. The tension between memory and forgetting extends beyond Marcelo's personal story. The film critiques a society struggling to reckon with its own history of repression. Through characters like Elza, who insists on confronting painful truths, the narrative champions the necessity of remembering as an act of justice. At the same time, the film recognizes the complexities of this process. Memory is selective and malleable. Forgetting is often intertwined with trauma and fear. The Secret Agent does not offer easy answers, but invites viewers to sit with these tensions, to understand the costs and consequences of both remembering and forgetting. This theme resonates deeply within Brazil's ongoing struggle with its past, a nation still grappling with the legacy of dictatorship, disappearances, and unpunished crimes. The film becomes a powerful call to honor memory as a foundation for truth and healing, rather than allowing silence to become complicity. Through its layered storytelling, The Secret Agent transforms memory into a battleground where history, identity, and morality collide. It challenges us to consider how societies remember, what they choose to forget, and the vital role of confronting the past in shaping a more just future. In The Secret Agent, surveillance is not just a backdrop, it is a pervasive force shaping every aspect of life under the dictatorship. The film masterfully portrays how the act of watching and being watched instills paranoia, controls behavior, and fractures relationships, creating an atmosphere thick with fear and mistrust. Marcelo's life is defined by this constant gaze. Whether through the analog tape recorders capturing whispered conversations or the unseen eyes lurking in government offices, surveillance is both a tool of power and a source of psychological torment. The film captures how this omnipresence turns private spaces into sites of danger, where trust becomes nearly impossible. Director Kleber Mendonca Filho uses visual language to emphasize surveillance's invasive nature. Scenes framed through windows, reflections, and barriers give the sense that characters are always observed, their movements catalogued and judged. The mise en scène often isolates characters, underscoring their vulnerability. Sound design complements this theme with mechanical clicks, static, and distant radio signals, reminding the audience of hidden microphones and intercepted messages. These audio cues create a sensory experience of being inside a panopticon, a world where privacy is an illusion. Surveillance in the film extends beyond the political. It infiltrates personal relationships, breeding suspicion among friends, family, and lovers. The tension between openness and secrecy becomes a survival mechanism, further isolating characters in their fear. The film also reflects on the psychological impact of this scrutiny. Marcelo's paranoia and anxiety illustrate the long-term effects of living under surveillance, where every gesture and word can be weaponized. This internalized surveillance shapes identity and behavior, trapping individuals in cycles of fear and silence. By portraying surveillance as both a political and personal force, The Secret Agent reveals its corrosive power, not just as a method of control, but as a means of eroding humanity and connection. It stands as a stark reminder of how authoritarian regimes manipulate fear to dominate not only bodies but minds. In The Secret Agent, time is not merely a chronological backdrop, but a living, breathing presence that shapes characters and narrative alike. The film masterfully intertwines past and present, revealing how history's shadows stretch long and deep, influencing the lives and choices of those who survive its turbulence. Marcelo's story unfolds amid layers of memory and trauma, each moment haunted by echoes of the dictatorship era. Time becomes fragmented, flashbacks, recollections, and present day interactions overlap, blurring the lines between then and now. This narrative structure reflects the psychological reality of living with unresolved pasts, where the past invades the present and refuses to stay buried. Director Kleber Mendonca Filho employs visual motifs, worn photographs, fading documents, and deteriorating spaces that symbolize the passage of time and the persistence of history. These objects serve as silent witnesses to forgotten or suppressed events, their decay mirroring society's struggle to remember and reckon with its own legacy. The film poignantly explores how individuals and societies wrestle with the burden of history. Marcelo's reluctance to confront his past illustrates the painful choices survivors face. To remember and risk reopening wounds, or to forget and risk complicity in silence. This tension permeates the narrative, underscoring the complexity of historical reckoning. The passage of time also highlights generational divides. Younger characters, shaped by the present, may lack full understanding of the past's traumas, while older ones carry its scars visibly and invisibly. This dynamic enriches the film's exploration of memory, responsibility, and the possibility of healing. Ultimately, The Secret Agent portrays time as a force that demands acknowledgement. The past is not a closed chapter, but a living influence that must be faced to move forward. Through its intricate storytelling, the film invites viewers to reflect on their own relationships with history, how it shapes identity, morality, and the collective conscience. In The Secret Agent, silence emerges as a complex, multifaceted theme, both a weapon and a shield in a world suffocated by fear and repression. The film delves deeply into how silence functions within authoritarian regimes, where speaking out can mean danger or death, yet silence can also perpetuate injustice and pain. Marcelo's journey is steeped in this tension. His silence is a survival tactic, a way to protect himself and perhaps others from the brutal consequences of revealing the past. Yet, this same silence becomes a source of internal torment, breeding guilt and isolation. The film poignantly portrays how silence can imprison as much as it can protect. Director Kleber Mendonca Filho uses visual storytelling to emphasize silence's weight. Scenes are often filled with pregnant pauses, characters exchanging loaded glances instead of words, and quiet spaces that resonate with unspoken truths. This absence of dialogue becomes a powerful narrative device, inviting viewers to listen to what is not said. The film also explores silence as a societal phenomenon. Many characters are caught in webs of omission, choosing not to testify, to forget, or to ignore painful histories. This collective silence reflects broader cultural struggles with memory and justice, highlighting how repression extends beyond overt violence to include enforced invisibility. Yet, silence is not portrayed as purely passive. In some moments, it becomes a form of resistance, a refusal to give oppressors the satisfaction of confession or betrayal. This ambiguity complicates simplistic judgments about silence, acknowledging the precarious choices individuals make in extreme circumstances. The secret agent thus asks profound questions about accountability, memory, and the ethics of silence. What does it cost to remain silent? Who benefits? And can silence ever be truly neutral in the face of injustice? Through its layered narrative and evocative imagery, the film captures the heavy burden of silence, the pain of unspoken truths, and the difficult paths toward healing and reconciliation. The conclusion of The Secret Agent leaves audiences suspended in a space of profound ambiguity, neither offering neat resolutions nor succumbing to despair. This ending is a deliberate artistic choice by Kleber Mendonca Filho, reflecting the complex realities of reckoning with a troubled past and an uncertain future. Throughout the film, Marcelo's journey is one of confronting memory, guilt, and the elusive possibility of redemption. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that there are no easy answers, no clear heroes or villains, only individuals grappling with their fractured histories and fractured selves. The final scenes are imbued with a quiet tension, combining moments of stillness and subtle shifts in mood that suggest both the persistence of trauma and the fragile possibility of healing. Rather than closure, the film offers a space for reflection, a pause that invites viewers to ponder the ongoing struggles with memory and justice in Brazil and beyond. Visually, the ending embraces chiaroscuro, the interplay of light and shadow, symbolizing the coexistence of darkness and hope. The unresolved narrative threads mirror the incomplete process of historical reckoning, where truths remain partially hidden and reconciliation remains a work in progress. This ambiguity also honors the complexity of human experience under repression. It resists the temptation to simplify or moralize, instead portraying resilience and vulnerability side by side. Marcelo's story, in its open-endedness, becomes a metaphor for collective endurance, the ability to live with pain and uncertainty while still searching for meaning. Critics have noted that the film's ending elevates it from a straightforward thriller to a profound cultural statement. It challenges audiences to sit with discomfort and contradiction, reflecting the ongoing impact of authoritarian histories on personal and national identities. Ultimately, The Secret Agent closes not with definitive answers, but with an invitation to remember, to question, and to engage with the complexities of history and humanity, an invitation that resonates long after the screen fades to black.